Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Andy Bartlebach, and I'm a senior planner here with the Albemarle County Planning Division. Tonight is a community meeting that is being held for two land use applications that have been submitted to the county for review. And let me pull up a presentation. I'll go through the agenda for this evening and then give a brief presentation. So this is, as I said, a community meeting for two applications, a rezoning ZMA2022-1 and a special use permit application SP2022-2. They are both interconnected with each other, and they are for a project known as the Crossroads Tavern and Inn on two parcels at the northwest corner of the intersection of Route 29 and Plank Road down in the North Garden area of the county. So before I go any further, I do want to read through the COVID sentence that we do before meetings. So as authorized by and in accordance with the county's continuity of government ordinance, in particular section C6C related to the format of public meetings, this meeting is being held electronically over the Zoom platform. So now moving on into the agenda. Just a few minutes of introduction and agenda review, and then I'll give a brief presentation on the county application review process and timeline. And then I will turn it over to Dean Andrews, who is the applicant for these two applications, and he will explain his project proposal, including the details and any information that he has on his project. And then we'll have about 25 minutes for Q&A with comments and questions from any community members or neighbors who have a question or would like to comment on this project. And then wrap up the meeting and next steps. So why we're all here this evening, it is a community meeting to share information about this proposed project, the legislative review process, any relevant policies and regulations, including the Albemarle County Zoning Ordinance and the Albemarle County Comprehensive Plan. We are also here to solicit public input on the proposed project during the Q&A portion of this meeting. And a summary of this input is included in the staff report that will ultimately be reviewed by the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. And I also want to say that I've received many emails from community members over the past few days, and all of those emails will also be compiled into a packet, and they will also be provided as an attachment to the staff report for review by the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. So any written comments that are provided to me will also be seen by the Planning Commissioners and the Supervisors. I do want to emphasize that this is only the first meeting regarding this project. There will be at least two additional meetings that the county requires to be held. A public hearing with the Planning Commission and then a public hearing with the Board of Supervisors. Neither of these meetings has been scheduled yet, but they will be sometime in the future, and I have my contact information later in my presentation. And so if anyone who is here this evening would like to stay up to date on when these meetings are scheduled for, just send me an email and I'll add you to a contact list. It is important to note that both of those meetings with the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors also have designated times for public comment. So again, just to really reiterate, this community meeting this evening is for informational purposes only. There are no decisions that are going to be made this evening, no actions, no votes, nothing like that will be taken. It really is to help explain the process for the applicant to present his proposal and for the community to really learn some more about what is being proposed for these two parcels in North Garden. And as I said, there will be two additional meetings with additional public comment time later on as we continue to move through the process. So to give a little bit more background on special use permit and rezoning applications, we hold community meetings for these types of applications because they require legislative review. So if a property owner seeks to change the zoning district of their property, which is a rezoning, or to commence a use on one of the special uses listed in a given zoning district, which is what a special use permit is, approval from the Board of Supervisors is required, and this process is called the legislative review. So the first part of legislative review is that an application is reviewed by county staff and other agencies, including VDOT, often the Albemarle County Service Authority if we're in the more urban areas of the county. However, since this is not in one of the development areas of the county, it will instead be reviewed by the Blue Ridge Health District of the Virginia Department of Health. And often, review by county staff will go through several iterations. County staff will review it, provide comments back to the applicant. The applicant will make revisions to their application based on comments from county staff, based on comments that they may hear this evening from the community. And so, like I said, that goes through several iterations before ultimately going to the Planning Commission for the first public hearing, as I mentioned earlier. The Planning Commission will consider the proposal, and they will make a recommendation of either approval or denial to the Board of Supervisors. The application will then move on to the Board of Supervisors, where another public hearing will be held, again with a public comment period. And the Board of Supervisors will ultimately make that final decision to either approve or deny the applications before them. So a little bit more background on a rezoning. As I said, it's an application to change a property's zoning district. This type of application is reviewed for consistency with the areas, with the parcels, the properties, future land use designation as identified in the county's comprehensive plan. It is reviewed for consistency with state and local authority standards and regulations. And it is reviewed for consistency with the guidelines of the county's architectural review board if it's in an entrance corridor. And these parcels are in an entrance corridor. Route 29 is considered an entrance corridor. And so both of these parcels are located within that corridor. A special use permit is, as I mentioned, an application to develop one of the uses that's listed as a special use in the zoning ordinance, something that requires a higher level of review. It does require approval by the Board of Supervisors. And as a part of a special use permit, if the Board of Supervisors does choose to approve a special use permit, they can also impose certain conditions on that permit in order to mitigate any potential impacts of that proposed use. So I mentioned that rezonings and special use permits are both reviewed against the county's comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan is a document that establishes a 20-year vision for the county. It contains overarching policies and recommendations for the entire county, the development process in the county, land uses in the county. And it is a document that has previously been adopted by the Board of Supervisors, and it's developed in extensive engagement with community members. And we actually are in the process of updating our comprehensive plan now for the county. You may have heard about that, and if you are interested in getting more involved with the update to the comprehensive plan, you can send me an email and I'd be happy to provide you with information and provide you with the email addresses of my colleagues who are really leading that update plan. So a little bit more on an overview of these two applications, specifically the Crossroads Tavern and Inn. This is an aerial view of the site. As I mentioned, it consists of two parcels that are adjacent to one another, parcel 87-4 and 87-3B. They are at the northwest corner of Route 29 and Plank Road down in North Garden. The Pippin Hill Vineyard is the property directly to the west. And then to the east across Route 29 is the Crossroads shops where like Dr. Ho's Humble Pie Pizza Parlor is located, in the North Garden Fire Station and several other shops. So as I mentioned, the applicant is looking, one, to rezone their property, and two, to request a special use permit. So the request for rezoning is to rezone the parcel of land 87-4, which is right there on the corner, from VR Village Residential to RA Rural Areas, and I'll get a little bit more into that in a minute. And then the special use permit applies to both parcels, and the applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow a restaurant, tavern, or inn located on a site containing an historic structure, and that would be the Crossroads tavern building and associated church adjacent to it. So this is just a map showing the zoning districts in this area. The white is the rural area zoning district, and the kind of yellowish color is the VR Village residential. So you can see the western parcel next to Pippin Hill is already zoned rural areas, and then the eastern parcel right there at the intersection is zoned village residential. And so the applicant is looking to first rezone that village residential parcel from VR to the rural area zoning district. And the reason for that is because of the uses that are permitted in each of those zoning districts. So I've listed just a few of the uses that are permitted by right in the rural areas in the village residential zoning districts. And so those are uses that could be done with just administrative review by the county. They don't require approval by the Board of Supervisors. So the rural areas allows agricultural and forestry uses, residential at half a dwelling unit per acre, so 1 unit per 2 acres, homestays, a country store, any type of religious assembly up to 200 people can be done by right in the rural areas. Village residential, again, has several by right uses, residential at 0.7 dwelling units per acre, so a little bit more dense than rural areas, but not by much. Group homes, farmers markets, those uses are also allowed by right in village residential. When it comes to a special use permit, both the village residential and rural areas allow things such as community centers, athletic facilities, private schools, and child day centers by special use permit. However, only the rural areas zoning district allows a special use permit for the restaurant, tavern, or inn located on a site containing a historic structure. So because only the rural areas allows that type of special use permit, that is the reason that the applicant is requesting to rezone from the village residential to the rural areas and then requesting a special use permit on both parcels to allow for their proposed use to be located across both of the parcels. The county's comprehensive plan contains land use recommendations for every property, as I mentioned earlier, and that's something that we really look at when we look at rezonings and special use permits. And so this entire area around the intersection of Route 29 and Plank Road and North Garden is designated as rural areas in the comprehensive plan. And that recommends a range of uses: agricultural and forestry uses, open space, the protection of natural, historic, and scenic resources, and then low density residential development, as I said, half a unit per acre or 1 unit per 2 acres. That's just a repeat of the previous slide. So that's kind of my overview of both the process and a brief overview of what the applicant is requesting. So this is the timeline. The staff review of proposal is ongoing, and really as a part of that staff review is this community meeting, which is the first of 3 required meetings this evening. And then, as I mentioned, there are 2 additional meetings that will be required for these 2 applications: a public hearing with the Planning Commission and a public hearing with the Board of Supervisors. Both of those public hearings allow public comment as well. Neither of those meetings has been scheduled yet at this time. However, if you'd like to be kept up to date on this project, if you would like to be informed of when those 2 public hearings ultimately are scheduled and what the date is, please send me an email. My email is down at the bottom of the screen. It's mreitelbach@albemarle.org, and I will add your name and email address to a contact list. And as we move along in the review process for this project and those public hearings with the Planning Commission and the board are scheduled, I'll send out an email to anyone who's expressed interest, letting them know when those meetings are. So that's everything that I have for this evening. So now I will turn it over to Dean Andrews, who is the applicant, and he and his team have a presentation with a lot more detail in what it is that they're proposing and what they have requested with their applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me share my screen in the presentation. Very glad to be with everyone tonight. And we have spent quite a bit of time working on what we believe is a compatible low density proposal for really restoring the historic inn back to its original uses and to be able to have it as a standalone combination of education, historic, and farm use. So the Inn at the Crossroads has an awesome history. It is two buildings. This is the picture of the tavern. And then there is the schoolhouse building, which was built in 1783, which is immediately adjoining it. So we're calling it sort of the next generation because Lynn and I are going to be buying it personally, and we're going to have it within our family trust, operate it as an inn, and you could read the uses that we're looking at doing within it. And it's something that will be a perpetual investment to really preserve the historic buildings and building something which really supports the rural area standards. Our team went through the whole comprehensive plan, and we believe that what we are proposing is committed to be compatible with and will have a negligible impact on the natural, cultural, and historic resources. I'm not going to read everything to you, but it has a great history. It is part of the National Historic Register and a Virginia Historic Landmark. And we have two architects working with us, and we have quite a bit of information going back to the original 1783, 1820 and beyond, including a very extensive study of it that was done by the University of Virginia back several years ago. And all of this is in the background of its historic overlay for the Tavern Inn. So it's a special use permit, but it is a use that has been there now for 200 years. We are committed to restoring it to the historic architectural standards and have already begun to do that by engaging with an archaeologist who will be studying and making sure the grounds immediately around it, we're able to find out what has ever been done there in the past and respect those past buildings or any compatible uses. You want to say anything more about the archaeological piece?
If we explore the terrain before we create any intervention, we'll hopefully find some historic fabrics, some features. We can build on those, not literally build on those, but use those for advantage to celebrate what has been there previously, and use that as a guidepost for certain aspects of the developing the historic precinct of the inn and the schoolhouse. So we tend to rely heavily on the archaeological finds, if any. As Dean mentioned, we've sourced quite a bit of the history already, so we have a good start. But it's our intention to preserve and to honor the past in every way possible. And archaeology, of course, is in the foremost of our focus here.
Right. And some of the feedback we got from our initial interactions, both at the county level and the state level for the historic review, was the new cottages that we're proposing on the land. We will make sure that while they are a classic look, they are defined between the new and the old. So we're not attempting to do something that looks like it was built 150 years ago. It definitely is going to be a style of that architecture, but with new materials. And we will have pamphlets that will be explaining the full history, because it's got a great long, rich history for both of the buildings.
And it's important when we're doing historical restoration and celebrating a historic structure, any addendums or any adjacencies need to be specifically distinctive to the untrained eye, so that people would say, oh, wait, this is obviously not one of the historic buildings, yet will complement the theme and the presence of the history and the old structures.
Right. Scale was important to us. We wanted to do something which really gave us the ability to have it economically viable, but with really a minimal impact on the land. We are looking to be combining both of the lots once we get the down zoning for the current one, which is closest to Route 29. And then we will be between the cottages and the buildings that are on there, 97% of the lots will remain rural agricultural use. So only 3% of it will actually be developed with any buildings or other infrastructure of that nature. So what are we doing with it? We're focusing on agritourism experiences and really return to the original experiences one could have back 150 years ago, or what the original farms are used for. So we're going to be doing gardening, be doing organic gardening, we'll be doing some greenhouses, some workshops, and I'll be explaining a bit more of that. Within the tavern itself, which has a rich history of people for meeting and dining and doing speeches from the balcony and everything, we're going to be doing authentic farm to table dining. And we are going to be offering cooking schools, which are limited density. To put it in perspective, the cooking school has classes that end up being like 12 people. So this isn't a huge thing, but it is something that fits into what people are looking now, ties in the next point of the wellness experiences. In the new addition off of the schoolhouse, we're looking at the possibility of converting 2 of the rooms to be small scale, occasional use spa rooms where people can come. We can bring in professionals to come in and do weekend classes in cuisine, in wellness experiences, and be able to have that as a way to be in Albemarle and experience it. We are already doing historic education tours and activities in Albemarle County, because again, part of the comprehensive plan is to come up with low impact but compatible uses so that more people can come here and experience everything that Albemarle County offers, which is just beginning to have that sort of image and awareness. This is a great aerial view that Jim Stern found and sent to us. You can see in the beginning there, obviously the original tavern. The building to the left is the kitchen house, and the building on the right with the red roof is the schoolhouse, and the white building in the back is the residential one, which is on the adjacent parcel that we are looking to simultaneously acquire. So this is our proposed site plan. We've had reviews of it with literally every single one of our adjoining neighbors. We have presented it to the Bunduran Farm Association in January, and we have had it posted on websites so that people can find it and view it. So what is it showing? The building closest to the road on the bottom right there, as you can see, is obviously the tavern, and you can see the kitchen house behind it. And then the kind of T-shaped building is the schoolhouse. The yellow building is the residence. The small sort of orangish ones are the cottages that we are proposing that are spaced out, and we've already met with the county, and they meet the setback from property lines and between structures so that they are the equivalent square foot linear footage away from each other, both for flow, and frankly for experience, and also for all code items. We have met with the fire department in terms of how they can access all of the cottages for any emergencies as required, and also from 2 directions. So as you're coming down from Route 29, you see the first entry, little red arrow there going in. That would be a secondary entrance only for the occasional deliveries or other pieces coming in, employees coming in. They'd be coming in there and going up and parking in the back. The deliveries would be in the back. They would then continue on down through and out. We aren't going to be having any traffic exiting on the one closest to Route 29 because frankly, it just isn't that safe. And we are working with VDOT on to ensure that that would happen. We've done in the past some other projects, and having that one-way loop works very well. The parking you can see are the kind of light, we'll show some pictures of it later, the light sort of yellow ones with the P's in them that are above the ridge. Those are where we have planned the parking, so it will be out of view of the neighbors from down the valley. We're also going to be doing additional landscape screening to protect those views. Again, if you take a look at the total square footage of the buildings on there, it's 3% of the land. And you can see the solar panels in back. That's what we're proposing. We'll see if we can get it approved as part of our sustainable energy.
Make a quick point about the environmental impact on back to the plan. What we're proposing with the cottage build out and a village green is a soft footprint on the land where we have impervious surfaces where we'll limit runoff. We don't have paved roadways. We'll have crushed stone bicycle paths and roadways, private gardens. It's both open to the views for the guests and screen the views between the cottages. In terms of our focus of plantings, we propose native plantings throughout, mostly mimicking the indigenous species that we find in this beautiful valley. So our planting scheme and the ambiance will be in keeping with the surrounding countryside, and there won't be any juxtaposition of species. One would feel from views from the distance and from within and out that they're exactly where they should be within the context of the surrounding area.
Right. And if you see the landscaping both along Route 29, which again is the entry corridor, and going down Plank Road, those are what we are proposing that we would be paying for coming in and planting with the new indigenous species, because right now there's a lot of invasive stuff. A lot of it's been torn down. So we're going to be completely re-landscaping, as you'll see in some slides later, that entry corridor and the feeling as you turn down Plank Road. So we're conscious of our neighbors. We have been a neighbor in Bunduran Farm for over 11 years at this point. And we have been working with the board and with our neighbors to provide landscaping screening here at Pippin Hill, so they really don't see any of the parking or anything other than just the natural lay of the land. We'd be doing exactly the same thing for what we'd be doing over at the inn. So we went and we took a look at, so what are we dealing with for the neighbors? And you can see those 3 red lines show the distance between the closest neighbors on Bunduran, or any of the neighbors, and what we're proposing and doing with the cottages. So the closest one is 1,600 yards or 16 football fields away. And we have a plan for what we're doing to screen the view, as you can see, including lower shrubs and hedges. And if you take a look at, there's an intercept theorem, an algebraic formula, that if we were standing today on that closest house on the porch and we held a ruler out in front, a 50-foot tree over in front of the cottages would be 0.38 inches, and the cottages would be 2/10 of an inch. So it really is way off in their view. So there won't be any glare. We're hiding the cars. So it will continue to be that natural, bucolic view of the valley, even after we add in.
And what we're creating is a reciprocity. As we're sitting here at Pippin Hill, looking across the valley to the neighboring houses, we see these small dots of structure, of architecture, which actually enhance the view, dot the landscape with bits of, settlement. Yet we're mimicking the reverse over here. So we're actually creating a mirror image of the semblance of the countryside, which is really, a delightful view.
Yeah, and every year we sit with the Bunduran Board Liaison Committee, and they get feedback. And if there's some particular species that we need to replace, I mean, we have spent probably the better part of $75,000 on just landscaping screening here at Pippin Hill to protect the view from our neighbors. So we're not only are we committed for it, we've been doing it for a decade. Matt?
Yeah, so for job creation, we have really focused as a company as to promote internally. And so there are a lot of programs and skill certifications and trainings that we have embarked on and really put into place, especially here at Pippin Hill, but really across Eastern Porter entirely. For me personally, I started here as a bartender server in 2012 and have been with the company since, got promoted to management at one point, and have really focused on learning the business in the area, and have, especially as a person who did a limited amount of college, this has really been a learning experience for me. And I've really come a long way on a personal degree in the not only hospitality world, but in the world of now winemaking and HOA relationships. And then I think now we are embarking on the historian part of it as well with the inn. So we have created a number of jobs over the years. We have health insurance, 401k, and career development, as I mentioned. And then we continue to work closely with PVCC, especially on our culinary and agricultural initiatives, to get folks in from those schools to get real hands-on internship experiences on property that I think has been invaluable to the greater community. And the inn lets us embark on a new and really important piece of really telling the history of the area, and then kind of using the inn as a jumping off point to the greater historical pieces like Monticello and so much of the rich history of Charlottesville. So the inn is just a starting off point for folks to then go from there to gain interest at the inn, and then go into the larger community of Charlottesville and really continue that forward.
Excellent. So taxes and jobs creation. This is, if you picture this being, we're developing 3% of the entire lot, but we are creating something that can generate significant tax benefit and local farm purchases for the county. Right now, we have about a dozen local purveyors, vendors who give us everything from food to other products to services and everything. If you take a look at the local farm purchases, the business taxes, it's over $900,000 a year between the state and the county. And the county in 2021 from just Pippin Hill was 285,000, and we're anticipating that'll be about another 120, taking that about 400,000 with what we're able to do in the way of paying taxes and support for local farm purchases with the inn. Historic preservation expertise is something that I've had a passion for a lot of years. I started on my first project I was working on was when I was with a British firm 25 years ago. And in that last 25 years, I've been involved directly with responsibility in multiple countries for over 50 buildings. And you can see this is a list of some of them that I have been involved in the last 15 or so years. And we're excited to be able to take on the tavern because we understand its importance. We just closed down building by building our 0 George Street property in Charleston, walking through each one of the 6 buildings and doing everything from the interior to the exterior plaster, some dark sky changes and improvements, and everything it needs to really provide really stable, perpetual preserving and protecting of the cultural heritage site that it represents. Actually interesting, if you take a look at the St. Michael's, Maryland, that's the same property. The reason why I'm here is because I bought from Sir Bernard Ashley back when I was with Orient Express Hotels. I bought Keswick Hall when he was getting ready to get out of it, and we bought it from the edge of bankruptcy and turned it in, and it's taken on a new generation out there today, obviously, but that was one of the ones that I was excited to get involved with. So what is it we have experience with from having done all of those historic as well as some other investments, not developments, because developers build and leave, we invest and we stick around forever. The water treatment systems, we have a fully engineered system both here at Pippin Hill, and I've done some other in the islands, that are able to not only start with rainwater recycling, but have really the proven sustainable engineering. And we're working with Mike Cron on that here, and we've worked with him in the past, where we're going to be not only doing rainwater recycling, but our treatment system, as you'll see, goes through those 6 points there. And in the end, it really gets treated through the final UV disinfection to where the water comes out treatable to literally potable quality levels. And 95% of it typically is that water will be cleaned and put back into the aquifer. So it's not a drain on the aquifer, it's not an impact, and it is 10 times cleaner than what a standard septic system is. And one of the points is, and we've had numerous meetings with Virginia Department of Health on this as well, our system exceeds their requirements by several fold. Chemical use. We are conscious, as we're hoping everybody would be, being focused on the organics. And we are committed for these points, as you can see in the listing there, as well as others, to really reduce or totally eliminate any of the typical harmful chemical impacts at all. Rural light control, dark sky standard, for those who know what that is, you understand the idea of the downlights. It really is something where you end up with shielding and angles so that there's very limited upward light output at all. We measure what the cutoff angles are, and all of our facilities will have that downward light. And that is also compatible with what the Bundoran Farm standard is. So we would be continuing that standard with our new investment here. For energy, this is something that we are looking to do, particularly with the new generation of solar, because a new generation of solar is about 2.5 times more efficient than what it was even 8 or 10 years ago. So we're proposing doing a limited number of the solar panels, and the wind turbines, the small one you can see, are what we would be proposing or discussing with the county and getting their thoughts on having those on some of the cottages. We would not be doing a big, large wind turbine, the type you see out in the west where you've got the big open plains and stuff, because that wouldn't work. But it'd be interesting to find out if there are just small ways we can do a green energy initiative with this investment. Agritourism is one of the big draws in Albemarle County. And we are fortunate the fact that Diane Byrne, who is the picture on the right-hand side, Diane was the lead horticulturalist at Monticello for years and years, and joined us about 8 years ago and has really been doing wonderful. We went from 8 planting beds to almost 40. And we did the wildflower meadow this last year as part of our whole beekeeping program. So we have a lot of experience across the board on it. As you can see, the points on what our commitment is, how we'd be extending that to the inn, and really ensure that our plans and experiences really reflect the integrity of where we are in our rural location. The personal experiences that people would be able to have, whether they're neighbors or people coming and visiting, or if you have guests from out of town, we'd be offering horticultural classes, organic gardening on what you could actually do to actually walk through what is that whole from what do you do in early spring, what do you do midsummer, what do you do in the fall, and how you do care and rotation. Egg production, we would have our second dedicated chicken coop and probably quail coop down there as well. And we're working with the PVCC. We're not only working with them, but we are going to be personally underwriting 4 scholarships for students who would otherwise not be able to afford to go to PVCC. And we will underwrite their full education program, tuition, books, and if need be, their housing costs. So what are the other personal education experiences you can have just as part of what we're doing between the schoolhouse and the tavern? You got the chef's tables and wine dinners we'd be doing in the tavern. Those are very limited, 16, 18 people. And we'd be doing a guest artist series I've done in the past and other resorts, where we'd be bringing in regional chefs, photographers, historians, artists, yoga instructors, and really being able to give people the opportunity to have a different slice of that experience in Albemarle. This example is something we put together for clients who are coming here or guests who are coming here to Pippin Hill. We get a lot of people who live in New York or live in LA and they're coming out and they're spending a long weekend. And the question is, okay, I'm coming out. What are the different experiences? What all can I do if I'm going to be having 72 hours in Charlottesville? So we got ahead of it with this. We have partnerships with everybody who's on there, including Monticello, where we can do docents tours. So people can come and really have that authentic hands-on experience. And it helps underwrite the tourism. A good point is that the average spend, we have a property in Charleston, and the average length of stay is 2.5 nights. We'd able to measure through American Express, those people are coming in on that card, and they are spending on the average of between $2,000 and $3,000 in addition to the money they're spending with us in other experiences, dining, shopping, and touring. So it will have a positive, again, low scale, but very positive impact on Albemarle tourism as well. These are some of the ones, because of my past experience, we have relationships with publications like Food and Wine. And we'd be doing a wine cellar weekend. And that's something we would be doing with their Ray Isle, they've been their senior editor for that for a long time. And so those are the kind of high touch experiences we'd be able to offer. Come and stay with us 2 nights and have this great, Monticello wine trail tasting experience. Wellness retreats we've talked about, leisure experience packages or something that would be tying into. We also have a partnership with the Darden School and UVA Med School as well. And they would be coming out and doing some midweek retreats at the inn. So where they would be able to come, stay there, have their private meetings. Pharmaceutical companies are also another ones that we have relationships with. And we're already doing some hosting of it, but this would actually give us the accommodations where they can stay with us as well as meet with us.
Dean, can we wrap up in the next minute or two so we can get on to the question and answer period?
I'm just really enjoying myself, man. I will do it. Landscape parking, I've talked about that before. That's so that the neighbors don't have to look at the cars. They'll be totally hidden from sight. The cottages we talked about, these are Southern 1800s vintage cottages. We'll be doing them in the new materials to explain the fact that they are not in such close proximity to the inn, but they are new materials and new, more contemporary, again, in keeping with what the historic standards are. Pretty pictures of what we'll be looking at doing on the interiors. This is Plank Road. Landscaping is what it looks like now. That's what it would look like after. This is not part of it. That's a separate parcel, but this is actually the parcel. You can see the White House up there. That's its beauty now, and that's what it's going to look like when we're done with it. That's it. And this is some awards and other things that we've been fortunate enough to have been able to do. So that's our presentation. And I do want to say that we are open and will be actively seeking out meetings with the community and with anybody who wants to meet with us and talk about it, Andy. We will be setting up open windows where people can just drop in, ask the question, we'll give you the answer, and we are open to adjusting our program so that we end up appropriately meeting the needs of the county and our neighbors. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dean. So now I guess we will move on to the question and answer period. Carolyn, another one of our staff members, will go through the queue, and if anyone has their hand raised, she will go just from whoever is in the queue first down the line. Please do keep your hand raised, even if it may take a while, because if you lower your hand and then raise it again later, you'll end up going back to the back of the queue. So if you do have questions, raise your hand and please just keep it raised until we get to you. I will be answering any questions that anyone may have on the review process, county regulations, that sort of thing, and any questions that are more specific about the proposal and the project that Dean and his team are proposing. They will be the ones to answer. And please try not to repeat any questions, just so that we can keep this Q&A session moving along. And Carolyn, is there anyone that we have whose hand is raised to ask a question or speak?
Yes, right now we have one so far. John, please unmute yourself and state your name and address. And if you're affiliated with a group or organization, you can start talking.
Yes, hi, this is John Shyman. Am I being heard?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. So I am a resident. I'm one of the residents that was on the map. We're about a mile or so away from the current Pippin Hill operation. My question to the team is, what I did not see in the presentation is any discussion or assessment or analysis of increased traffic flow and addressing the increased traffic that's going to be coming off of 29 onto Plank Road and safety surrounding that. Thank you.
Okay. We have run the VDOT studies for what the additional keys would be. And if one way of looking at it, John, is if you take a look at the 50% occupancy for another 11 cottages ends up being about 15, 18 cars in a week. It also is important that you've got coming off of Route 29, they'd be coming literally 120 feet down, turning right in, and then going in and parking, landscape parking. We will be providing golf carts and bikes for anybody who wants to then travel around, either around Pippin Hill or around Van Buren on hikes. They would be able to do that as part of something that would not involve any vehicles at all. We would be consolidating it so that we would not be having any additional commercial traffic at all. It's a good point, because we would be, anything that'd be ordered for the inn would be ordered in conjunction with what is already a standard, trash pickup or anything else on what we're currently doing at Pippin Hill. They're two totally separate entities. The inn is not going to be part of Van Buren, either legally or from an investment standpoint, but we have already met and walked through what the safe flow of the traffic would be, and it would not be it does not rise to the level of threshold where VDOT requires anything further to be done to improve the flow of the traffic. I'd be quite happy to sit with you and take you through the numbers, of course, and anytime. You know how to find me. Thank you.
All right.
And Oh, I just wanted to add on to that as well, just from the county's perspective, that with both rezoning and special use permit applications, those applications are reviewed by both the transportation planning team that works here in the Albemarle County Community Development Department, and they're also reviewed by VDOT. And so those comments and any concerns that they may have are both provided to the applicant and included in the staff report that is ultimately provided to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors.
All right, next caller, or next attendee, please state your name, address, and go ahead with your question.
Hi, my name's Tony Savarese. I am at 540 Pippin Hill Lane, which is directly adjacent to Pippin Hill Vineyard. And first, one comment is that our property was not shown on the sightline slide. I would love to see us included in that. We are certainly a lot closer. And I'm looking right now at the Crossroads Inn, and it looks a lot bigger than 1/8 of an inch. So if we could, have that consideration made. Most importantly, there's landscaping. There's currently a significant grouping of evergreen trees along the Pippin Hill Lane road, and which is, and I'd like to see what the landscaping along that boundary is going to be like. I mean, we've seen 2 slides on the Plank Road and also the Route 29, but I'd like to see what is going to be done along that boundary, which is basically the inn's property and Pippin Hill's property line together.
All right, Tony, we're currently working on acquiring or starting the process of a viewshed analysis of the inn. So all properties that can see that area will be included in that thought process, and we'll be sharing those findings with the greater community once it's complete. So hopefully over the next month or so, that analysis is completed and can be shared, and then we can make further assessments of what plantings would be the most effective at that time.
Yeah, and Toy, we're committed to making this work for you guys. You guys are our closest neighbor, and we'll make it work, even if it ends up being some plantings that are closer to your house or midterm down on the common areas, or literally up close to in front of the inn. But we'll make it work so that you do not have any views that you don't want to see. If there are some parts that you want to see, then we'll do that. I mean, we have been working, as you know, on the landscape screening the parking lot here at Pippin Hill, and Diane just literally, we spent another $5,000 on further evergreen trees to end up with some further screening of that. So we're committed to making it work, and we will meet with you as soon as we pull it together, and we'll come down and take a look at it from your vantage point. You come up here and we'll come up with a solution. Thank you.
Next, I have Carter. Carter, please unmute yourself and you can start talking.
Sorry about that. This is Carter Leak. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Carter Leak. I am also on Bundoran Farm on Carpenter Drive. My question relates to the comments on the hiking and the trails. As you know, Bundoran sort of surrounds you with hiking and trails. Where are you proposing that your hiking trails would be, and how could you stop guests from coming on the trails, on Bundoran's trails?
Yeah, any other points, Carter? Is that?
And maybe if you could just cover new employee parking. I'm sure this will have more employees that have to service the cottages. Where might they park?
Because they're separate entities, anybody working at the cottages at the inn would be parking down at the cottages in the inn. And we also have some carpooling programs that work well with current employees. We'd be using those as well. To come back to your point on the hiking trails, what I was referring to was really just the ability for them to come down and and come up to Pippin Hill, come up for the classes, other classes, be able to do that. We're providing bikes and walking paths on that so that they can safely get from the cottages over here and back. Yeah, I wasn't planning on having it something where, in fact, we're specifically not going to be inviting them to be on the Bundoran Trail system.
And we would be happy to provide additional side or a gated entry to the trails as well.
All right, next I have John Schuman. Please go ahead and start speaking.
Yes, hi, John Shyman here for a second question in follow-up to the car conversation. So during the conversation, the reference was made, or maybe it was when Tony was speaking, I can't recall, that the inn at Crossroads is quote unquote separate from Bundoran Farm, and then you referenced it again as being separate entities. But then they're connected in the sense that the roads that I think I saw on the mapping and walking trails perhaps are directly connecting with the Pippin Hill facilities, if I'm reading or looking at this correctly. So I'm a little bit perplexed here. Are they separate or are they connected? Pippin Hill and in at the Crossroad. Thank you.
What we wanted to avoid was additional traffic on Plank Road Lane or Pippin Hill Lane. We already are working on mitigating some of the traffic issues that we have on Pippin Hill Lane. And so for folks to then exit the inn and then drive over to Pippin Hill would seemingly be more dangerous and cause more issues on Plank Road. So having more walking or biking, the multimodal travel seemed like a safer, a more efficient option, a greener option, and something that folks would enjoy really more than getting back into their vehicle and having to trek through everything. They could simply ride a bike or walk. We do expect, given just the nature of the inn and the nature of Pippin will attract a similar kind of customer. So we do expect folks to want to visit Pippin just by the nature of the area. So we just wanted to ensure that that was as smooth and as the least invasive as possible. They are two separate operating entities, and while Eats and Porter Group may own both, Pippin Hill does not directly own the inn, and nor will they be directly imparting any operations.
Right. And we got a note, by the way, from Jim Stern, who is on the call, but kind of virtually on his phone. He sent us a note saying that if anybody would like to tour the inn, walk through it and have him show exactly what it is like up close and personal, just reach out to him. He'd to personally tour everybody around and show them the buildings and what our current plans are. And when you see it, you really get a sense of really the scale of it and how distributed what it is we're proposing is doing.
And also the intention of the site plan, the environs north of the inn, with the cottage clusters, is that it's an internal circulation. People can, if you've been on the site, it's a lovely gradual knoll that tapers up to the tip. It's a beautiful view. People can stroll within that to the village green and stay within the precinct of the inn and of the schoolhouse and the cottages. So there's a lot of internal circulation within that site, not related to Pippin Hill. And of course, if they meander up there is a path where they can go over to the winery. But basically the site plan dictates that people stay within that precinct. They come as guests and they circulate within there. You look at the mews we've created, and you look at some of the other footpaths and circulations through the historic precinct and the cottages. They'd be more than happy to just roam there without ever seeing Pippin, if they so choose. So they are distinct site plans that are separate.
I have John, go ahead.
John Forestay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My questions or comments are three parts. One is Pippin Hill and the inn are obviously going to be one complex. yes, two separate entities in terms of operational, but they're one complex, and that's the way it will work. The second is the trails. You are aware, it seems, that the trails, and I'm head of trails on Van Doren Farm. I live at 670 High Top Drive on Van Doren Farm. The trails are for the owners and residents only, number one. And number two, golf carts, I don't know what you're proposing, but anything like that are not allowed on the trails anyway, even by the residents. The third is that you cited the Pippin Hill parking screening as a success. In fact, it's only, I would say, partially successful. And that was after a basically 10-year struggle between Van Doren Farm and Pippin Hill to get the screening done. So while screening at the inn would be really good and to happen, we'll have to wait and see on that. Thank you.
Make a comment on that, John. And the topography isn't evident on our site plan, but if you do look at it closely, the parking that we propose for the cottages is off the eastern edge of the ridge, completely out of view from just about anyone. It's over the ridge line that you see there. So if you look at the topography, it would not be within the view shed of anyone, those few parking fields. I wanted to make a note of that. It doesn't show on a flat plan, but if you look at the topography, those parking fields are over the edge of the ridge, facing east, not west towards Van Doren. That's a distinction that doesn't appear obvious on the plan.
And we're completely clear on the rules with regard to the trails and stuff. I probably had people hiking around or walking over to Pippin Hill. It was inappropriate to call that a trail. That's just a walk.
And it is part of the process that we want to do a view shed analysis, and we want to get the plantings to the neighbors up front and get that done up front, so that we don't have a process where there was a lack of communication around the parking issue and what other residents were experiencing. And as we speak, we are actually doing additional plantings in the main lot to provide more coverage, and we've coned off spaces to put some parking there. So that is still in process. It's fortunate that it took so long to get in compliance, but again, that is part of why we want to be upfront and really ahead of these things, so that don't struggle or go back and forth or have to communicate further on screening and plantings.
Yeah, in my experience, some of the things I've learned and really wanted to make sure I take with me or learn from issues in the past that didn't work out as well as one had thought or hoped, or what one's expectations were. Learn from it, you come back and it's better coming forward. And we're committed to doing that, John. Thank you.
All right, this time, if there's anybody, I have two people with their hands up. If there's anybody else that would like to ask a question, could you please raise your hand and get in the queue? All right, Elise, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lacey Leak, and we have a property on Carpenter Road, and I had a kind of a triple question. One was, and I'm sorry if you've covered this already, how many guests per cottage would there be allowed? And then my other question was, will the tavern be run like a restaurant with regular restaurant hours, different than Pippin Hill, which has limited hours, because I know it's zoned, it's not part of Van Doren Farm, so I don't know what the regulations are there. And if it is run like a restaurant, where will those guests that are not staying in the cottages or visiting Pippin Hill, but coming directly to the tavern to have a meal, where would they park?
Okay. Yeah, what we're proposing is that we would not be open as a restaurant with people coming in for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We would be doing private events there. We would be doing breakfast for the people who are staying at the inn. We had talked about opening up breakfast for, if you are a Van Doren resident, we'd be able to set up as part of the Van Doren Club program we have. If you could come down and have breakfast and bring your guests, but we're not chasing an a la carte restaurant per se. it's only 25 seats down there and some outdoor seats. So it's a very small facility. So it really is going to be more planned, special, private event experiences. It's not a full restaurant.
People.
Yeah, we have a porte-cochere as part of the program. Porte-cochere where people be dropped off to go to the restaurant or to check into the hotel, pull back, and then the parking, as Roger mentioned, is a series of parking areas that are on the slope of the land is facing Route 29. So none of the parking will have any visibility looking down the valley towards Van Buren.
All right, John, go ahead.
Yes, hi, this is John Scheinman. In one page of the materials that was covered, talked about lighting. And dark skies is fairly important to the neighbors that live in Van Buren Farm and surrounding area. But in that conversation, there was a reference to quote unquote limited upward lighting. Can you share with us in what circumstances or instances or locations that upward lighting would be used or applicable or appropriate?
Sorry, the limited upward lighting is literally just a lift from what the dark sky standard is. In other words, it is saying that everything you can will be totally downward lighting, except for light coming out of a skylight at night if they didn't close it off. And so it is going to be very limited pieces. We have no planned electrical fixtures that aren't 100% dark sky ground pointing fixtures.
And I think what Dean was saying was he was limiting upward lighting, meaning, not just limited, but limiting the upward lighting. So there is nothing going in the sky to eliminate the view of the sky.
Yeah,
that was the whole intention.
Yeah, we don't have any sky facing lights. We don't have
no sodium vapor lamps. No,
Right. Yeah. Any of our partner pathways are going to be relatively low and have the cap, which is casting a light down onto the ground, not casting in both directions, for instance.
Next, we have Becky.
Hi, my name is Becky Woodson. My address is 3514 Monacan Trail Road in North Garden. I am not a part of the Van Buren family or community. My property does border Pippin Hill from 29 back. I've met with Mr. Andrews and Matt, been given a very nice presentation. I support the tavern in concept. My concern is the cottages. I can give you my parcel number if anybody needs it. I'm, I guess, concerned maybe about some pedestrian traffic along my property line from the cottages would be the main thing, and noise from the cottages. Thank you.
Becky, thank you. I appreciate your meeting with us. And we will ensure that right now there is no connection to your property, as you know, from obviously from Pippin Hill or anything, nor would there be any connection to your property from inn or the cottages. If the cottages that are closest to you would ever be an issue, we would quite happy to have it as part of the ordinance or part of our approval on it. We'd be required to put in whatever noise barriers, landscaping barriers, whatever is required to completely isolate your experience. And I'll be happy to sit with you as the best thing to do, Becky, would be for us to take the plans and walk down, and we'll actually stake out where those two cottages that are closest to you are. And if they're an issue, we can maybe relocate them, do something else with them if that were to be an issue. But one way or another, we're 100% committed to solving. You as our immediately adjoining neighbor that we've known for now 12 years, we will definitely committed to make it work for you.
Next, we have Kathy.
Hi, my name's Kathy Scheinman. I'm 5275 Plank Road. I'm just wondering, I believe that there's a road going through the proposed plan. And if that road, is any of that on the Bendoran Farm property? And if so, has that been permitted, approved by the board?
I believe you mean that the entrance, the direct entrance to the inn is right over the line in the Pippin Hill, property there. And I'm not aware of the Bunduran board or their
I can tell you the background on that. Yeah, when Fred Scott owned it all, that was part of the Carpenter Farm. The entrance to the inn is that historic entrance. They, for some reason, when they divide up the parcel, that one piece just sort of ran down and sort of ran over about a third of that little road coming in. So it has had a perpetual easement for 50 years or something. So it is an easement for that little piece, and the inn has to maintain it. Bundoran really just wanted to make sure that they didn't have any responsibility for it, no insurance liability or repairs required or anything. So it is a legally registered easement and has been there for ever.
All right, next we have Tony again.
Hi, thank you. I'd like to get a better understanding of the ramifications or implications, of the zoning change. So maybe this question might be more for Mark in the county, but if the team wants to say something, that's more than welcome. There's been, my sense is that there in the community, there's been a very big concern about the growth of event venues and their impact on the surrounding community. I know in Batesville, there were some issues on, et cetera. So my question is, my understanding and my belief of what I've read is that there are certain rules and regulations under the RA zoning that sort of kind of keeps some boundaries around the events that go on. And if the zoning change does take place, are those kinds of rules and regulations going to go away related to time and noise and all other things? So maybe I'll throw it to Mark or someone from the county, but.
Yeah, I can answer that.
Thank you. Andy, I'm sorry. Did I say Mark? I'm so sorry.
No worries.
There you go. It's been a long.
Yeah, so there are certain regulations for events, that sort of thing in the rural area zoning district. So if the one parcel that is currently zoned village residential, which is the existing single family home at the corner right there on 29, the applicant's proposing to rezone that to rural areas. So any events or that sort of thing would have to meet the regulations that are in the rural area zoning district. And if they wanted to pursue a special use permit for a certain level of event, that would have to be a separate special use permit that's reviewed separately. And that any existing special use permits are not affected. What am I trying to? There are no, the existing special use permits on Pippin Hill or the inn property would not be affected by the rezoning of the village residential parcel to rural areas.
Yeah, I think this is Rebecca Ragsdale here. I'm a planning manager and work with Andy. So the change from village residential to rural areas allows them to ask for the special use permit before you this evening, which is historic taverns and inns. And along with historic taverns and inns, we often see what we refer to as accessory uses, which Mr. Porter went through today, and you might be familiar with Clifton Inn is an example of another property that has a special use permit. With the inn, we allow a certain level of events activity. So as we go through this process, which is the special use permit process, the special use permit will really define the parameters of all of those things that you've seen before you this evening. As it goes through the process, if a special use permit is approved, there's typically conditions of approval that address those impacts to neighboring properties. So that would be part of that. That will get more defined as part of this process. Some of the other, regardless of what use category we call it, we get very technical in our ordinance because that's the way our ordinance is. There are things that we can get to with this special use permit process that will address noise and the number of attendees as far as events and that sort of thing, if that's helpful at all to your question.
Next, we have Lacey. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry. I asked the last time, and I'm not sure if it got answered, how many guests per cottage there would be.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, our plan is that they are, at the moment the plan is they're all one bedroom, what we call the equivalent of the hotel terms, almost like a junior suite. You'd walk in, there'd be a living area, and then the bedroom. By the way, none of these have kitchens, so these aren't going to be kitchen cottages. So they would just have the bedroom, a sitting area, and just a refrigerator to hang out stuff. And it would have a couch. If you're traveling with kids, you could fold it out and your kids could sleep on the couch. So it's going to be a couple with 1 or 2 kids is the maximum. We're definitely not doing groups, we're not doing fraternities, we aren't doing any of that kind of stuff.
And Dean, just to clarify, each cottage rather, would have 2 of those suites.
All right, next. Go ahead.
Hi, was that to Carter?
Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was going to talk about the traffic, and this could be for the county. That intersection, I think all of us who live here know how dangerous it already is now. For some reason, people can't figure out, how to, who's going, who's supposed to go. On your traffic study, are there any traffic safety requirements that could arise as you look at the increased traffic, whether it be yellow flashing lights or even a stoplight?
Yes, I've already raised that with VDOT, having dealt with them in the past on the Northern Virginia project we did, and they were able to come up with the idea of an extended turn lane, as well as like something needs to be done about that intersection in general. I totally agree with you. It is, if you take a look at it statistically, I don't know, it seems like it's a little bit like Russian roulette when you're driving in there looking to turn, towards the city when you're leaving down from Plank Road from our end on it. I think something definitely needs to be done, and it could be what they did up, not at Red Hill, but the next one down. What's the one right down from Red Hill? Anyway, sorry, but I think there are pieces that we would be actively petitioning them to do, regardless of the issues with the inn, frankly. I think just for even the safety for people departing there now.
And I will also add on to that VDOT does look at these applications and make comments on them. And then if the Board of Supervisors were to approve this special use permit, once the design stage and the site planning stage occurs and site plans are submitted to the county and to VDOT for review with the very detailed engineering work, VDOT also looks at those, and at that time, if there are any concerns that they have with entrances or intersections adjacent to the property, VDOT can require improvements to be done at that time. So that is something that VDOT looks at, and we do keep in contact with them throughout the review process for these applications.
All right, Andy, I don't have anybody else with their hand up.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn.
Wait. Last one, Carter. Oops. Go ahead, Carter. Carter, can you unmute yourself, please?
I'm sorry about that. I apologize. One more question. As many on this call know that there is a potential, another proposal coming down Plank Road called Waiver Tree. My question would be, if this is approved, does this set a precedent that for other event venues that says, oh, we approve it? Are they viewed each in isolation? That's one way to answer it. The other one would be, if this goes down, could there be a case made that Waiver Tree would bring, the combination of the two would be too much?
I'm happy to answer that one unless you want to, Andy. There are special use permits for a reason. There's an individualized analysis, site-specific analysis for each special use permit request, and approval of one doesn't set a precedent for the other. And we can find out the status of Waiver Tree Hall for you. I believe that was on the other end. I thought that was on Dickwood Road, actually.
It's off Plank, though. It'll affect Plank traffic.
Right. I think with this request, like we said, we have the traffic information and we're discussing that with our transportation planners and VDOT, and we'll take a look at anything else we should consider, but that development's, that special use permit request is not approved. I think it's indefinitely deferred. And that was I think a bit more intense as far as events than this sounds like would be proposed at this location.
If I may just jump in as the Planning Commission Chair, also Karen Firehawk, just to let you know, we each, just to confirm what Rebecca has said, each site is analyzed individually. And these are special use permits precisely because we may need to look at conditions that would be put on the site to limit the disturbance or any other conflicts with neighbors, with traffic, whatnot. There are limits to what the county can do because VDOT is in charge of the road. So with regards to requirements for entrance, design, that has triggers based on the number of vehicle trips per day, sightlines, et cetera. But we are here to listen to understand what some of these concerns might be, so that the development team as well as the county is all ears to understand what might need to be mitigated. But this has no relationship to Waiver Tree Hall. I hear what you're saying about whether or not there would be a cumulative impact, but Waiver Tree Hall was stated as indefinitely deferred. They have not brought back that application. They didn't actually get to the stage of making it after they heard some of the community input.
I have John.
Hi, actually, it's Diane Forrester. I have two questions just for clarification. This is a follow-up to Lisa's question about the number of people in cottages. And you said it's 1 bedroom, a living area, no kitchen, sitting area, couch that folds out. So a couple with 2 kids. And then someone made a clarification that each cottage would have 2 of these suites. So are we talking of double that, like 2 couples, I don't quite understand what 2 of those suites means. Could you clarify that, please?
Yeah, happy to. It's a work in progress. What we've been talking about doing is having some of the cottages aligned so they would be close enough that they could have some kind of overhead trellis kind of connection so that they would be able to do them. But at the moment, we have 3 in my master plan at the moment. We have 3 of the cottages which have adjoining 2 bedrooms. Then the rest of them are going to be single standalone bedrooms. So it isn't, if we have 11 buildings, we're not doing 22 keys plus the keys in the end. It is going to be less than that.
Okay, and then the other quick question was just around things like deliveries, big trucks, trash pickup. Did you say that Pippin Hill and the inn would share that? Or are they going to be separate also?
What I'm saying is that they would not be, if you have a linen delivery,
right.
The delivery would be scheduled so that we get our linens on Thursdays. They'd be dropping off at the inn, coming up and dropping off at us and going away. So that would be, it's already happening on Thursdays. So it is just a small scale drop off of that existing point. So it isn't as if somebody not related to here bought it and they just did their own scheduling around it. So the point is that would be
coordinated. Yeah.
And some of the pieces would make sense to have them dropped off and refrigerated, and then we would take them down there by golf cart. I mean, it's kind of nuances, but it definitely by the very design of it would be a limited impact on the traffic.
Thank you.
All right, that's all I can.
Great, thank you, Carolyn. And thank you to everyone who joined us this evening. I will put my slide presentation up one last time just so everyone can see my email address again. Again, my email is mrattlebach@albemarle.org. So if you have any further questions, if you have any further comments, if you'd like to be added to the contact list that I have created, to be informed when these future public hearings with the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors are scheduled, you can just shoot me an email and I'll add you to that list. I will say that I did receive several emails this morning and over the weekend, and so I have already added all of those folks to the contact list. So really it's just if you haven't already emailed me before. So that's all I have for this evening, and I hope everyone has a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.